Okay, we're going to talk about how to what will help us figure out the angles that we have here and here. An important thing to remember is that we have what we talked about before. Remember how we were talking about lines being parallel, the three sets of lines being parallel to each other? Well, they are, but to our eye, they're not really parallel. Here's why. When we are looking at something, you probably know this, when you're looking at something and it's close up, it appears larger than when it's far away. So if I take this coaster and I go, hey, look at this coaster, and you might go, wow, that's as big as a hubcap. But if I put it farther and farther away, you might go, oh, that's as big as a quarter. Okay, so it's that kind of thing. So what I drew here on our drawing from last time, right here, is the age-old railroad tracks. So railroad tracks are parallel. If not, train falls off, goes boom. But if you were to stand in the middle of railroad tracks that were going off to the horizon, they will appear, those lines, those rails will appear to get closer and closer together. So with our box, they don't necessarily completely go together, but these lines will gradually, that one, and that one back here, will all gradually get closer and closer together as they move away from us. So they're even moving closer together as we go from here to here. Now, if we have extended these lines way, way out, sooner or later, somewhere over where my cooler is, they would converge completely. But what that means is these two angles here, like this angle and this angle, aren't the same because these two lines are coming together. The easiest way to kind of figure this out sometimes, certainly by eye, but also looking at our drawing and when we sight it and look and go, okay, we've got this length here, which should be the same as it is here. It is if we measured it. But to our eye, this is a little bit less than this, a little bit smaller, because it's farther away. Okay, so in our drawing, this is a drawing we did, the basic drawing here, you can kind of see the same thing. We have our front corner here, and these lines moving away, but they are getting closer and closer together just by a little bit, and our line here is actually a little bit shorter than it is here. Okay, so let's go to the drawing we were just working on with the beginning of sighting right here, and talk about what's a way to kind of figure this out a little bit better, a little bit easier perhaps. And what we're going to do is once again use our sighting pencil. What we're going to do is we're going to line up our pencil at the bottom, for the beginning, at the bottom of our front corner. So see this line right here that we drew there, that horizontal line, which is just not part of our box? Same thing goes here. So we'll just pretend that this is the pencil here. Okay. So we're going to line it up there. We're going to look at this horizontal and this vertical. And we're going to see, this will be the sort of edge of our book here. We're going to see at what angle it is. Where does it fall in here? So this is 90 degrees. We know it's not going to be at 90 degrees. Could be at 45, but it might be less. I'm kind of putting these here just so we can kind of picture the piece of the pie. All right. So I'll move this out of the way. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold your pencil out. Arm's length is pretty good. And actually, you know, it's funny how easy it is for us to hold a pencil pretty horizontally in kind of a natural way. So I'm going to line it up there by the bottom corner, and just kind of look at that angle. I'm going to use my pointer here. There we go. So we're going to look at, let me move that a little bit there. Look at this angle right here. So kind of in looking at it like a piece of pie sometimes is kind of helpful. We know it's less than 45, so somewhat it's just kind of like picturing, okay, Whereabouts is that? Now remember, anything that you draw can be erased. All of these lines are just sort of sketching lines that you're going to use to make sort of your final lines. We'll talk a little bit more about that. All right. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to do exactly, oops. We're going to do exactly the same thing that we did here. Now, this angle here and this angle here won't necessarily be the same either. And actually, when we put this one here, we can kind of see if we're comparing, you know, this angle to this angle. This one's a lot flatter than that one is right over there. Okay, so we're kind of looking at this piece of the pie right there. Now, all right, so we're gonna compare it to that one. We're gonna make it a little bit flatter. Okay, so we just sketched a little bit there. Okay, now let's look at the top angle here. Okay, this is a little bit trickier. Can be a little bit trickier because we don't have a 90-degree thing like we do right here. But now that we've gotten a little bit used to it, let's put that there. And just kind of look at, we're going to look at the angle right here. Okay. And just try to visualize it. We know it's less than 45. So this is not completely scientific. You know, it's kind of like looking and going, okay, how exactly will this work? Or will it work? We'll know as we go farther along. Much of drawing is just continually refining as we're doing it. All right, so let's look at the angle over here on the left-hand side right there, okay? So I'm looking at that. Now that is indeed, you know, both of these angles, but you can kind of see it maybe a little bit more here, is going to be a flatter angle than the one below it. Okay? And we'll see how that works out for us. So we'll come over here and draw that angle right there. Okay. Now, so I've got basically this front corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to extend these lines. Now, yes, it would be great if we could use a ruler. Please don't. Just draw the best you can, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend these lines. And even now I can see I'm at a really strange angle with it on my little easel thing. And I'm bringing it all the way over to this line we drew over here, which is the end of our box, our book box. It's working okay. Maybe a little sloppy, but okay. So it actually seems to be working kind of the way it needs to. That these lines are actually coming together because they're moving away from us. Okay, so let's see if this worked. Let's see if this worked the same over here. I think it did. All right, so that kind of worked. All right, it's a little wobbly over here, but that's okay. We can refine those later. But basically what that's going to give us is there are our corners right here. They come to right at this edge of our rectangle. Oops, right here. All right, so we have the distance between here and remember where our back corner is, right? So the distance between here and sort of this, you know, put this here, kind of this imaginary horizontal line here, okay? So what we need to figure out is basically where that point is. Now, we can see that it's not directly above our front corner, right? It's a little bit over. Now, we can use our sighting trick again. Let's do this upside down for right now. I'm just gonna make it a little bit easier for me to measure. Okay. And then I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to see how far I am from this corner. I'm going to guess that I'm about 1.5. Okay. So I'm just going to draw a line straight up here, just as a guide. And I'm going to take my unit of measurement right here and go 1.5 this way. So 1 is about there, a half is about there, and I'm going to make that my back point right there. Now, so what I'm going to do now is just connect this to here and this to here. All right, so I'm going to draw a line. One of the things I'm going to talk to you about too, about drawing any kind of line, straight or narrow, is that if you draw it, this one's going to be way upside down. If you kind of draw little lines and kind of keep backtracking, you're continually changing your direction and altering how you're drawing. Now that's a little bit, that's a little bit not straight because I'm drawing it with my hand upside down. There we go, that's maybe a little bit better. But by drawing a line, let's see if we can get that a little bit more in focus. By drawing a line, I'm going to get a little bit farther in. Just by drawing sort of little lines like this, kind of going back, kind of sketching forward like that, you can alter your line. Like you can go, oh, I'm going too far over this way. We'll start going this way. It's so much easier than trying to draw a line and making it go in whatever direction you want and trying to make it perfect. This isn't about making lines perfect. These are all sort of our sketchy lines where we kind of make our objects a little bit better from there. So this worked out okay, but it needs a little bit of refinement. Why? Well, if we look at, so we know that these two lines and these two lines are working okay because they are coming together, all right? So let's kind of look at our other lines that are parallel that should be converging at some point. So I'm sort of extending this one out, and I'm extending this one out. And that kind of works. That one's actually, that angle's a little bit off. That actually goes a little bit more like that. So it does look like they will come together sooner or later. Now here's the problem. This line and this line, they are definitely heading away from each other. How do I know that? Looking at this right here and this right here. So it's not completely scientific. We're taking these measurements in the air, right? So I'm going to, the one thing I know in terms of refining that is probably that this horizontal line here needs to come down so that this point here is more like here, so that kind of goes like that. And this one, I'm turning this at an angle because I'm sorry, my hand just doesn't want to move that way. So that would really work better because these two lines will come together. Ignore this line. And these two lines, oops, and this one will come together. So that's truer to what we're looking at. Maybe a little bit confusing, but it does make sense. All right, thank you.